side where it starts at 6, skips 5, but I don't know if you can see that on your side.
Mhm.
Hey, what's up, you guys? Welcome back to the Unlock Your Freedom podcast with Kevin Keppel. Man, I'm pumped to sit down with Michael Rearden today to bask in his genius. So, Michael, what's going on, man? Welcome.
Thank you, Kevin, for having me on. Everything is going good.
Yeah, awesome, man. Well, we were just chatting about our shared love of Texas here a second ago, and it's nice and toasty for us already here. Summertime has officially started. But in other news, Michael is a fresh dad, so congratulations to you, and welcoming a new soul to the world. So, man, that's really cool, man. You want to talk about that for a second?
Of course. So, new dad, first time parent. And I will say, even though I was a former educator, worked with kids probably for the past 10 plus years, when you have your own, it's a different story. And you cannot prepare yourself enough to be a parent, father, a mother, even at, going beyond that. There's just so much that you have to be prepared for that you just won't ever be. And I like to think of life, like how we can try to be prepared for certain things. Like we read all these motivational books, we read all these success books, we get all these coaches, we get all these mentors. And then when we finally get thrown into a scenario where we have to act, we're like, oh crap, I'm not ready for this.
Yeah,
So basically, yeah, that's it.
yeah, that's like Muhammad Ali said, everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth, right? And yeah,
Exactly.
had a great plan until the baby showed up, and the baby had
Hmm.
other plans. I think that I totally hear one of your dominant strengths shining through. Michael has deliberative as one of his top 5 strengths, and people with deliberative are phenomenal at assessing risk and making sure they're not going to fall in any holes before they get started. But once they get started, they execute it like one of the quickest, highest levels because there's little little problems usually popping up for you guys. Little so compared to people like me who are activators, we just jump off the cliff, build our wings on the way down, and let's see what happens. And I have a lot of love for deliberative. My brother has deliberative at number 1, and you guys keep us out of trouble. So, man, thankfully you guys are around. Does that sound familiar to you when I talk about deliberative a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I always been the type of person to plan things out in my head on paper. And I know it can be counterintuitive to success because there's so many motivational speakers, so many gurus, entrepreneurs that talk about burn your bridges. So you have plan A, you follow plan A. For me, as much as I would like to burn my plan B and my plan C, my mind won't allow that. So I can burn them, but I'm just going to build them right back up. And as long as I have those bridges, it doesn't matter if it's plan B or plan C. Plan A is still going to be my main focus, where I'm not looking at plan B as being, well, if plan A doesn't work, I can fall back to plan B. I'm 100% on plan A. And if for some reason plan A falls through, I do have plan B there. So I'm not the type of person to say, well, okay, this didn't work out for me, and just keep on moving on. But I do plan to make sure if something goes wrong, I'm going to be secure in my own skills and my own planning that I'm going to make it out on the other end. Okay.
Man, that also sounds like intellection. Michael's number 4 strength, intellection, is just loves to go super deep on whatever they're thinking about, and like that totally was intellection all over that response. And man, like the reason I love deliberative is because you guys are so good at the way that you thoroughly investigate anything. Like when I'm working on a plan, whether it's a plan to buy a mountain bike or the plan to start a business, I go to my brother with deliberative, and now that now we're friends, you're gonna get the same thing. Like, hey man, what do you think about this? Because I know how meticulous you guys are at just making sure you're not wasting time. And like if something does go wrong, you're gonna be okay. Do a lot of your friends and family come to you and throw you questions or looking for advice on pretty much all flavors?
Well, sometimes I get a lot of that from my clients. They will come to me and they will ask for advice. They would ask for tips and tricks, whatever it be. And then I'm always able to offer them a different perspective or things that they never thought about. So typically, me working with a client and I'm just working with them. And then I say, hey, why not think about this or do this? They go, oh, I never thought about that. And sometimes my family will do that, but they do know that I'm quite busy. So they don't impede in my life as much. Now, if they do need something, they will contact me, but I'm almost like a last ditch effort for them. If like everything else is fallen and broken, they're like, all right, time to call Mike.
Yeah. Well, and two, we're never a prophet in our hometown, right? So there's too much information out there with the people we know the best. Well, let's
Exactly.
talk a little bit about how you serve people professionally. You started to touch on that. Will you just help everybody in our audience understand what it is you do for the people that you serve?
Of course. So I'm a mindset coach. What I do is I help people with the quality of their thoughts and the way they think. And how I do that is I just align your way of thinking to be more positive and basically more toward your goals. Sometimes we might get into a habit or we might get into a routine that's not conducive for us to complete our goals. That could be we come home from work and instead of us getting a coach, learning about personal development, filling ourselves with knowledge and wisdom that's going to help us complete that goal or get to our goal a lot quicker, we do things that are going to be counterintuitive, like watching TV, Netflix series. We might enjoy sports, so we are a big sports fan, and we instead will watch sports all evening rather than doing the work that we're supposed to do for our growth. So sometimes I try to look at their life and we try to find a balance per se, not saying that there has to be work-life balance, but we find the balance of where we can take some things away or where some wasted time is, and then we try to get your mind in line to be more proactive rather than reactive when everything falls apart, because most of my clients, they're reactive when they are in, neck deep in debt with a trauma, some type of hardship. They come to me broken and then I'm there having to fix them, versus people who come to me saying, yeah, Mike, everything's good in my life and I'm just here to just touch up, similar to how you go to the dentist. You go see the dentist every 3 to 6 months, and the dentist typically says, yeah, you have no cavities, keep up the great work, make sure to floss, brush your teeth every day. People don't do that with coaching. People wait till something is broken or they say, I need to fix something, this is not working anymore, I'm not happy, and then that's when they start to make the changes. But by that time it's already, now we have a lot more work because there's so much garbage or so much trash in our mind that we have to take out. And the mind doesn't like change. The brain doesn't like change. So changing that and getting to that mindset of change takes some time, takes some effort. And if you want it, we can get it. It's just that you have to really, really want it.
That was a really good explanation because myself included in the past, like I've waited till past it was probably appropriate time to seek help, and like it's not weak to ask for help. That's a sign of power. And when you were telling that, I was thinking of, and do you remember that show? Oh gosh, Home Improvement with Tim Allen. That was
Oh,
on
yeah.
back when we were kids, right?
Yeah.
And one time his wife, like, she was driving the car and the check oil light came on and she just kept driving it until it like locked up. And he's like, "Why did the light came on? Why didn't you tell me?" She goes, "Well, I thought it would start flashing and making noise when it was really bad." And I'm like, "Yeah, that's what we do as humans. Like the light will start flashing, and that's the chaos in our lives. That's the light. It's not flashing yet, but then
Mhm.
we wait until it gets like really, really bad, and then we'll call, Michael. Hey, I need your help. Like, when you're all shattered on the ground, right? And it's like, hey, man, now we got to spend 55 minutes of our hour putting you all back together before we can do any work. And so I think proactive was the word that I heard just screaming in there. And I would much rather create than be, compulsive and reactive, because I'm just simply reacting to somebody else's creations anyways, if that's the case. And
Mhm.
so I was thinking, like, what is the difference? Obviously you're phenomenal at critically thinking, right? Like when we were kids and we had those workbooks and we got to the critical thinking question, you got excited. The rest of us like got scared and like closed the book probably. So how critical thinking has been lost and replaced with feelings. Could you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, of course. So critical thinking typically peaks around third grade. Third grade, they really dive deep into critical thinking. With all the changes and all the assessments in schools, critical thinking is one of those things that kind of has been put to the wayside. And now people are growing up and they don't have that type of critical thinking. So what happens there is that there's a lot of conformity, where there's a lot of people who just follow the crowd versus understand, well, why is everyone doing this? Or why is everyone going in this direction? And that all correlates to our mental health as a society, or just even globally. How is the mindset of everyone. And typically, most people are finding a comfortable place. They stay in their comfort zone and they don't do much with their life. And then they wonder why they're not successful or they're not happy. There's a reason why only 2% of people succeed wildly in the whole entire world. It's because those 2% are going to be critical thinkers and they're going to be go getters. And many people are just going to accept their circumstances, whether it be good, bad, or ugly, they are going to accept it. And we have to not just accept what we're given, but understand what we can do and then go forward with that way of thinking.
Yeah, I think that is one of the things that I see with a lot of not just the clients that I work with, but the people that I know or the people I hear about is that like comparison game, and they start looking at other people for what they should be doing, and that should be word should alert you that maybe you should be looking at what your thoughts are in that particular instance, because if you're competing with someone in a way that you're striving to be like them, which is what competition is, like where is your uniqueness, where is your genius in that? And so how do you encourage people to stay true to who they be, as opposed to trying to win it's somebody else's version of success?
Mm-hmm. It's difficult to find that it in the person sometimes, because sometimes it's covered up with all of the beliefs that they were given to as children from their parents, society, where they're not really true to themselves. They're just trying to be accepted. That peer acceptance is so big. And we have to sometimes dive deep. And typically it's very prominent in high school, but it's only a whisper per se for many people, because people who come to me in their 20s or in their 30s and they're like, Mike, I don't know what my purpose, passion, or gift is. And well, I said, well, we probably have to look at high school, because that's probably going to be the easiest place to start. And we look, and then I just asked, well, in high school, what do you want to be? And they would start to tell me all these different things that they wanted to be, what they wanted to do. And then just from there, I said, which one of those do you get most excited about? And then they said, well, I get most excited about cooking, for example. So they get excited about cooking. And then I asked, well, why are we not cooking and you're an accountant? And they might say, well, my mom told me that I can't be a cook because I won't make any money. And I said, okay, that's interesting. And then we go off that. That person was developed or influenced by their parent, which is fine if you have a supporting parent, encourage you to do what you love, what you want to do. But if you're going against that grain and you don't do what you're supposed to do, you kind of lose your uniqueness a little bit. And we have to understand that the power of us, the purpose of us, is going to be in our individuality. So what I can do, you can't do, Kevin, but not saying that what I do that you can't do, if that makes any sense, because I can probably do something because my mind is just thinking in a different way. It's going to be moving this way versus your mind might be thinking in a certain way and it moves a different way. Not saying that what you do is wrong. It's just that it was meant for you versus what I do was meant for me. And like I said, there's no right way to skin a cat. And it's similar to following success. There's no right way to be successful, because what success is for me might not be for you also. And success, like I said, is going to be defined by that individual. And if you don't follow that type of uniqueness and following what you're supposed to do, then success is going to be one of those things that was given to you, whether it be, like I said, from the environment, your peers, your parents. And then when you reach that success, you're going to find that happiness was never there.
Oh yeah, you like climbed the wrong ladder, as Stephen Covey said in his book Seven Habits of Highly Effective People. It's like, make sure your ladder's leaned up against the right wall.
Mm-hmm.
Like my dad was a CPA. He owned his own firm. He's like, you could get an accounting degree, you could work for a big firm, you could take over mine. I was like, oh my God, I fell asleep in the middle of that. What were we talking about? Like I love my dad. He was phenomenal at what he did, but that is not how I'm built at all.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh. But God bless all the accountants out there. We love you. Thank you for keeping us out of jail.
Yes.
Very, very grateful for y'all. So I want to go back to something you said in that answer when you're talking about people's individual characteristics. Michael's number one strength, individualization, you guys. Like that's exactly what it sounds like, in a very healthy place, what he just shared. It's like, hey, what makes you unique, and how can that unique thing that you do at a very high level contribute to a purpose, right? How can that contribute to the whole? And what Michael can do better than most, because of that strength, especially so dominant for him, Michael can see people's superpowers really quickly, even if they're not using it, perhaps. And that is a pretty cool thing when you can really see people, in some cases, the way they want to be seen. In some cases, ways that they haven't given themselves permission to be seen yet. And what gets recognized gets improved. When you hold that space of belief for somebody in this version of excellence, they usually step into it. They prove you right or prove you wrong, one or the other. But will you talk to me a little bit about how that kind of manifests in your life and what that looks like?
So when you get really good at that, you can look at a person and just know what they're supposed to do, know how they're supposed to move. And I remember when I was a swim coach, I would teach children how to I would teach children how to swim, and they would come in sometimes timid, sometimes they would be very brave, and they're like, I know how to swim, and as soon as they go in the water, they're touching the bottom of the pool and they don't have a way up. So it depends. You have two different personalities, the timid person and the person who's so brave who thinks they know how to swim, but both of them don't know how to swim. And I got really good at understanding who knew how to swim before even having a lesson with them. I can look at the kid and I can say, it's going to take 3 months for them to learn how to swim. It's going to take 6 months to learn how to swim. And it was always strange to me because I can look at a kid, know if they know how to swim. And whenever I was given a kid that was just in for a filler lesson or something like that, I would ask the parent typically, do they know how to swim? Yes or no, right? The parent would typically say yes or no, or whatever. There was one time I got this girl and she had all the characteristics of someone who knew how to swim. And I asked the mom, I said, does she know how to swim? The parent says, not yet. I said, okay, not a problem. I said, by the end of this lesson, only a 30-minute lesson, she's going to know how to swim. And mom's looking at me like, okay, whatever. She doesn't believe me. So I get the kid in the water, probably about 15 minutes, she's swimming. It was me going over the basics and then just reaffirming what she already knew, that she was able to swim. And I just had to be that guidepost for her to make her aware that she can swim. And we all have something inside of us, whether you see it or you don't. I can see it. I was a teacher for probably since 2009. So I've been teaching for quite some time, where you get a classroom of kids of 25, 30 kids. You have to understand what makes them tick, what makes them learn the best. So if they're an auditory, kinesthetic, visual learner, depends, right? And then you have to be able to incorporate that, understanding their strengths, and then going from there. It's all about perception of that person. So when I'm looking at someone, I'm not just saying, well, this person is a boy or a girl. We look even deeper than that. We look at, okay, this person is a auditory learner. They're very friendly, high emotions. Let's use that. And then their lesson plan or how I speak to them is actually more appropriate for how they're going to learn versus me finding a blanket statement of how people learn and then just going off that. That's why I'm not a really big fan of like coaching programs where it's like one size fits all. Not hating on them, because it works for a good portion of people. But for me, everything is individualized because what you have to give is different than the other person.
Yeah, absolutely. And I totally agree with that. I've met, somebody who was inquiring about coaching or talking to other coaches. And then, if somebody's asking me like, well, what's the process? And I'm like, well, the process is you. Like, there's certainly things that we do that are common to everyone, but until I understand, what you want and what you need, I can't, prescription without diagnosis is malpractice. So
Yeah.
I love that you said that. And I've had coaches who are like, no, this is the way you do it. And I'm like, but I haven't even told you anything yet about, who I am or what I want. It's like, no, it works for everybody. And I'm like, man, I don't think that's right. But a different approaches work for different people. But I think that that granular approach is really, really, really powerful because how can we teach people to win their way? And that's the gift you give people as a coach. It's like, hey, we all have very special abilities to serve other people, and just what does that look like with our unique skill set and our talents.
Mhm.
So let's talk about one more of your strengths really quick before we move on to a couple other things. Let's talk about a Ranger. So a Ranger at number 2. I love hanging out with the Rangers. My wife has a Ranger pretty high. I've got it like 12 or 13, but they call a Ranger the Maestro. That's the nickname for this one because you guys are so good at like organizing chaos into just a really manageable thing, whether it's a sock drawer, a business you're building, a classroom of 25 to 30 screaming kids, or a vacation. Like you can just like organize things so you can execute at a very, very high level. So talk to us a little bit about that if you would.
I would say it probably came out most in high school, and then college. It kind of just kept on going. So in high school, I was the president of my weightlifting club, where I would organize everything, where you have to have a teacher there because it's weights, then the kids do anything crazy. So having that, setting that up, because it was already kind of going off where there wasn't really a schedule. So I kind of started that up again. So I just restarting programs that were already there, organizing what days we're going to be there, what time to show up, et cetera, workout plans. And then in college, I was the president of my music club. So the music club, same thing, was in tatters. It was nothing. It was bare bones. And by the time I left, it was vibrant. We were doing events in schools, things like that. We were in newspapers. So there was just so much going from there. Then beyond that is like my friend groups. What are we going to do? Right. So I'm scheduling like bowling nights, date nights, dinner nights, all of those different things with my friends, and making sure everything is covered from A to Z, where it's like they come, they show up, we have a good time. There's no want. There is
Yeah.
no need for anyone to go off and get something, because I already thought about it. And then beyond that, I remember we would go camping, where everything for camping was there. It's like, oh, we need bug spray. I already got it. We need
You
firewood.
probably
Don't worry.
had three kinds too, right?
Oh yeah, of course, of course. And then I strategically placed it throughout the campsite, so everyone didn't have to go too far if the mosquitoes were bothering them. They just had to reach over somewhere, get the bug spray, and they're protected. So it was always making sure that comfort was a part of it too. So I arranged things where it's going to be comfortable, and then understanding, for example, classroom management. How can I make teaching and learning fun, right? How can I make it good? And it wasn't so much of, well, I'm just going to tell them what to do and they're going to do it because I'm the teacher. It was, let me understand them, right? And then I understand them, and then I'm going to be able to arrange things in the proper manner of, all right, if I speak this way, they're going to act this way. If I do this song or I do this dance, they're going to do this. If I give them this type of work, they're going to do this. So I understood the cause and effect, because once I knew that, it was basically clockwork, and it was a simple type of job. And I know many teachers struggle with classroom management, but for me, you can put me in any classroom and I'm going to probably survive. And it's not basically survive on the skin of my teeth. It's going to be, I did good.
Yeah. Oh, I guarantee it. I mean, you're designed to, like I said, bring, order to chaos, and especially with individualization behind that, because not only are you going to bring organization to it, you're going to do it in a way that benefits every individual in the way they need to be benefited. And before you started talking about camping, even I was like, man, I want to go on vacation with Michael because it would be awesome. And like, no matter what I forgot, it would be there, and like
Yeah.
nobody's gonna die, right? So I would imagine you probably plan most of the trips in your family.
Yeah. Everything is planned. I mean, just looking at my skill set, first aid, CPR, AED, trauma, anything that goes wrong with you, I can probably fix. And not saying that we don't need a doctor, I'm going to make sure you survive until the doctor shows up or we can get you to the hospital. But like, typically people who are around me are going to be in good hands, and people who come on vacation with me, everything's all set. And I even had my wife, she went on vacation without me once. So she went to New York and she just wanted to go visit some family. I said, not a problem, see you later, right? And she had already been on maybe 3 or 4 vacations with me. And so everything's taken care of. She doesn't have to think, she doesn't have to do anything. Everything's taken care of. So she goes one time to New York, I think only for like 5 days. And then she comes back, she goes, I'm never going anywhere without you again. And it wasn't that she missed me, it's just that she missed what I did that she had to do that she didn't even realize I did.
Yeah. I mean, that I'm laughing because it sounds so familiar. Just I'm more like your wife in that situation, and my wife
Yeah.
is more like you. She's very, very prepared, and like she has those like things you put in your suitcase to put your clothes in little blocks and zip up, so your suitcase is like super organized. And
Yeah.
I like, man, I would have never ever thought to do that, and it's so simple, but it's so brilliant. I love that. Well, let's shift back to your business. Tell me, like, what are your favorite types of people to work with? What kind of clients do you just love serving?
I love working with people who have been told no. They said, yeah, my dad said I couldn't do this and I'm not doing it, but I really have an inclination to do that. I had a teacher that once told me that I would never surmount to anything and I want to prove them wrong, right? So they have been told no in their life and they're trying to now show that they can. So they're trying to prove themselves right and prove the other person wrong, not in a boastful or braggadocious type of way, but understanding that their value is not determined by another person. And the whole concept of my business is Revan is basically turn never backwards. And, just kind of going into a quick story to explain it a little bit better. I was a swim coach and I was doing a lesson. And this student that I was doing a lesson for wasn't my student. He wasn't my primary student. He was another instructor student. And the instructor was a good instructor, but she was a very, let's say, let's say let's let's say she was not as encouraging as she could be. And what happened was we were swimming in the little side in the shallow end, and all of a sudden, I'm like, this kid's doing great, so let's bring him into the deep end. And as soon as we get to the deep end, the kid can't swim. So I'm like, okay, this is not good, right? Because the kid can swim, but he's not swimming, and this is all mindset. So I'm working with him in the deep end to get him to swim in the deep end. Well, the instructor swims over to me saying he can't swim in the deep end. Don't even try. It's not worth it. So in my head, I say challenge accepted, because I know that this kid can. I just saw him do it in the shallow end. There's no difference. It's all mindset. So I'm working with him, and now I have about 20 minutes left with him because I spent the first 10 minutes making sure he knows how to swim, knowing all the basics. Then we're going to go into the deep end, and we're really going to turn it up. But now I'm in the deep end, and I have to get over fear. So that's a whole different process, and that's all trust building. So I had to build trust with him in 20 minutes. Long story short, I was able to build the trust with him. And after the lesson, the mom comes up to me. She says, you did more with him in 30 minutes than he has done his whole entire, swim career. And I'm like, thank you, Mom. Thank you. And the mom wanted to switch over to me. And she asked if I had any availability. Now I was booked already. So I told her that I was booked and I didn't have any availability. And she goes, rightfully so. And then she kind of just carried on. And I went to my next lesson. And the kid, you can tell, he was kind of like on the stairs, kind of just like hanging around the water, kind of, playing around with some toys and stuff like that. And he just was glued to me. His eyes were just glued on me. Like, okay, like this guy got me to swim in the deep end, and this person didn't help me get, swim in the deep end. So now his mind is like, okay, well, one adult told me I couldn't, one adult told me I can, and I could. So now his mindset is going to be like, no matter what adults tell me, I can do whatever I believe. And that is where we should be, right? So if you believe you can do something, don't limit yourself to what science says, to what, your parents or your friends say. If you think you can, go for it. And I help people who know they can, but maybe no one has done it before, or maybe no one believes in them. Because in life, you only need one person to believe in yourself, and that's you. But if you're having a hard time finding that person or finding that belief, get a coach. And then that coach is going to be that biggest cheerleader in your life saying, we can do this. Let's keep going until we get it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's so well said. Like if you think you can or you think you can't, generally you're going to prove yourself right. And, like, do you need a coach? No, nobody needs a coach. You need some food and water. That's what you need, right? Other than that, the rest is luxury, so to speak. But you know what? If you want to grow faster, better, smarter, whatever, like get a coach, especially a coach like Michael, like somebody who can hold that space of belief for you and reflect back, maybe the greatness in you that you're not seeing. And, like you've got to find somebody that you trust and somebody that has some form of success that, you would trade places with, because that's the people you're going to really let pour into you. And, Michael is very uniquely designed to be a phenomenal coach. I mean, you guys heard his stories, but I've also have his strengths right here. And two of them really stood out on that last story he told. For one, that we haven't talked about, competition. Michael likes to win, but Michael has the very healthy version of competition, and that it's about us winning, not about me winning. Because when the other swim instructor said, you can't do that, like you can't win this way, like his competition strength's like, oh, really? Watch me win, right? And it was about he and the little guy went in together. And, you said you need to build trust really quickly. And luckily for you, Relator's your number 7 strength. And you guys with Relator, you have this like really cool paradox about y'all. Like y'all build trust instantly. I remember when we first met, I was like, oh man, I feel safe around this guy. He feels believable. Like you can hold my wallet, right? Like he's cool. And that's like totally normal for a Relator. But the paradox is Relators are very slow to trust people generally. And my brother has his strengths really high, and with deliberative, it makes total sense. He's just assessing risk on people. But the really cool thing with the relator, once you're like on their island, like they will do anything for you. Michael's probably one of the best friends of his friends, and just a great like family member, and like just really does the right thing for people, and because that's who he is at a fundamental level. And so, what a phenomenal coach you would have if you engaged him. So highly recommended from me. But there's a shameless plug for you. Let's
Thank you.
let's transition into a little fire round. I got a few quick questions here, and just give me a quick answer, and we'll send you on your way. What would you say? What would be your best piece of mindset advice for someone who's looking to, find their purpose, so to speak?
If you're looking to find your purpose, I would first create a list of things that you like and a list of things you don't like. And then find out what you like the most, or the top 3 of that list, and then kind of stay there for a little bit. And you're going to see things that you don't like. And if those things come up in any of those top 3, maybe stay away from that.
Ooh, that's a cool way to do it. I haven't thought about that, because that contrast will give you really good clarity. And like lists are just really powerful, especially, I mean, you have Achiever at 3, Achievers love list. I have Achiever 2. It's like, we'll even put stuff on the list we've already done just to cross it off. Like, okay, cool. But that's another subject. All right. What's something in your life, Michael, that's non-negotiable?
Non-negotiable. So I don't have anything I can really think of off the top of my head that's non-negotiable, but I do have expectations. So like there's rules for my house, there's standards that I keep to myself. So for example, I'm going to the gym 5 days out of the week, right? If I miss a Monday, that means I'm on the weekend, because I typically take Saturday and Sunday off. So those are like a non-negotiable things. There's no cell phones at the table. There's no phones while we're driving unless it's a road trip. So I have those rules in place to kind of help my life, where it's like I understand family can get distracted with all of the technology, where it's like, all right, we are not going to get distracted by technology. We're going to stay focused. We're going to have that balance of, you can play your video games and have fun and watch your movies, but there's going to be time for work and time for play. So I would say that my non-negotiable days are Monday through Thursday, where it's almost mandatory work.
Yeah, but that's so cool when you do it that way, because you give yourself permission to play when it's time to play, or relax, or whatever the case may be. What's a favorite book to read or recommend or give away?
I would say, depending on your age, but I would say just a blanket book that would be good could be Napoleon Hill. Is going to be Think and Grow Rich. And from that book, you're going to get a really good foundation of mindset, of belief, of optimism. There's so many things that book's going to help you attain, where that could be a good book to start if you're just looking for mindset or personal development.
Yeah, I would highly recommend that book as well. That's the quote unquote first self-help book. And so it's definitely a classic, phenomenal book. If there was one message that you could get everybody in the world to hear, what would that be?
There's going to be a lot of people in the world telling you that you can't, and you have to be bigger than that can't. You have to say that you can, and no matter how much energy, no matter how much effort it's going to take, it can be done, as long as you remain in this mindset that you can get it done. Because there's going to be things that have never been done in the world, and you might be the first person to ever do it. So you have to keep that type of mindset of, I can be the first person to do it, even though science has said it can't be done, even though my parents said it couldn't be done, my teachers say it couldn't be done. If you believe it can be done, then it can be done. So remain steadfast in what you do, and don't allow other people to kind of douse your fire when you know that was your way.
Oh my gosh, there's so many things that can't be done. Like, we can't go to the moon, right? We couldn't possibly do that.
Not possible.
I love that advice. All right. What does freedom mean to you, Michael?
Freedom for me means that you have the ability to do what you want, be what you want, say what you want, and then also be understood in that same regard. Because you and I, Kevin, we might have different beliefs. We might have different ideas. We might have different structures. Cancel that out. And that doesn't mean that we can't be cordial. So freedom means that you have your opinion, you have your belief, you can have all your values, but you also have to understand and respect other people's beliefs, values, and opinion. Because if you can do it, they should be able to do it also. So you can't just hate a person because they have a different belief than you. That's freedom. They have the same right as you do to believe what they want, to do what they want. So allow them to do that. And of course, you might not appreciate what they do. You might not be a part of what they do, but at the same time, that's them, and what you do is different. You don't have to be with that person. So eventually in life, you learn who do you want to surround yourself with. So freedom is that also. Surround yourself with people who you want to be around. Not so much, well, I have to be around this person, because you don't. You choose who you want.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. The only person you have to be around is you. So
Hmm.
might as well make that
Enjoy it.
somebody you want to be around. I love that word respect you used in there too. It's like we need to respect ourselves. We need to respect other people. And you know what? Like, I don't have to have an opinion about everything. I don't have to have an opinion about everything you do or an opinion about every opinion you have, right? But that's your birthright, is to have an opinion. So who am I to say that I'm right and you're wrong? It's like, hey, how about I just love you unconditionally? Doesn't mean I have to like you, right?
Hmm.
That's why we have in-laws, so we can practice that. Like, that's a joke. I love you guys.
Yeah.
But like, love unconditionally means I love you no matter how you show up. So last question for you, Michael: where can people go to learn more about you and engage with you?
Of course, the best way is revenconcepts.com. You can go to my website. Everything is going to be there. All my social media. If you wanted to find me or just follow me on social media, you can go at Reverend Concepts.
I definitely do that, you guys. Michael's got a great podcast too. I would definitely check that out. And check out the show notes down below where you found this. We'll have all his links in there for you as well, so you can connect with Michael. And definitely highly recommend, once again, if you guys are looking for a shift in the way that you're showing up, he can definitely get you anywhere you want to go. So, Michael, give us a parting shot and let's get out of here.
All right. So, first off, thank you, Kevin, for having me on your podcast. Great conversation on my podcast. So, everyone, if you wanted to check out his podcast or my podcast with him on as my guest, check it out. It was a great conversation. I cannot thank him enough for coming on that. And then also, just sometimes you have to go slow. And if you're in a place right now in your life where you have to take a step back, don't be afraid to take a step back, because that step back is going to help you see the bigger picture. And when you can see that bigger picture, then you can take 2 steps forward, and then we get closer to your goal that way, versus you keep trying to hit a roadblock and that roadblock is not budging. Now, there is a way to do that, but you have to be resilient. And most people today are more fragile than resilient. So we do have to be understanding on our mindset of our society and our culture, and then act in appropriate manners. Because if we don't do that, many people fail. And that's where the gap between failure and success is so wide, because many people, they fail once and they give up. But in all regards, failure should be a lesson rather than a sign saying, well, we shouldn't do this. Now, of course, you shouldn't put your hand in the fire. So that's kind of like a failure. Try to put your hand in the fire, see if I didn't get burnt. You failed there, but then you also learned not to put your hand in the fire. So you learn a lesson, and we have to be understanding to ourselves and of the lessons that we get, because sometimes we receive a lesson, but we don't pay attention. So pay attention to who you are, to how you are, and to what you want to be.
Ooh, well said. Well, thanks again for being here with us. And you guys made it to the end. We love you. Thanks for making it till the end of this. Hopefully it was helpful for you. And we'll see you guys next time on the Unlock Your Freedom podcast.